Hello and welcome to Cryptid by Region, Germany. It seems like as of late we really have been focusing on these types of videos. That's okay since I personally really like them and I know you do as well. Before starting, I wanted to say hello to Ricard from Leipzig, who runs a paranormal group in Germany. So join me today as we travel from our previous location of Madagascar and head quite a distance to Germany. As with most regions we talk about in this series, Germany has quite a long and extensive history. So in light of this, I will try to include a very brief overview. The earliest humans in the area were the Homo heidelbergensis and Homo neanderthalensis, or simply Neanderthals. Originally, the indigenous people were considered hunter-gatherers, but then in the Neolithic period, farmers migrated to the area from western Anatolia, which is part of Turkey today. Following this, the people set up various groups known as Germanic tribes. Soon, Rome took interest in the area and was able to control quite a few locations. Some tribes worked with the Romans, while others fought to keep what land was theirs. Ultimately, it is known that about 7 of the larger tribes, which included the Saxons, Visigoths, and Franks, eventually played a role in the decline of the Roman Empire. By this time, the Frankish tribes would unite and become their own empire that would control an area of land known as Austrasia, which included parts of France, Germany, Belgium, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands. The Frankish king, named Pepin the Short, died in 768, which left his son Charlemagne in charge, and he was even crowned Emperor of Rome. His grandsons would then split the empire into 3 different kingdoms. As a side note before jumping ahead, the tribes had united under a federation, and its king was Henry the Fowler. This is important since he is considered to be the founder of medieval German states. Following this was the introduction of the Holy Roman Empire, which represented the German king's control over the Kingdom of Italy and the Latin Church. During the reign of Frederick I Barbarossa, Italy challenged the idea that they should be ruled by the Holy Roman Empire. The cities within united under the name of the Lombard League and defeated Frederick I at the Battle of Legnano in 1176. Following this, they would become somewhat independent, but still retain their loyalty to the empire. In the following years, the empire would have many difficulties, including the Black Plague, social and religious unrest, as well as wars with France. It was during this time that one of the most important German states, known as Prussia, would rise and come to have one of the most powerful militaries in all of Europe. Under Napoleon, France was able to wrest control of most of Europe, excluding Prussia and Austria. However, after a series of both unsuccessful and successful battles, Prussia allied with Russia and managed to defeat Napoleon and regain the land that was lost. In 1815, the German states would join together under the name of the German Confederation. This would be followed by the German Empire. Prussia would remain an important location until it was dissolved in 1933. Now we have a little bit of an oddity when it comes to the German flag that you are looking at currently. Normally I like to go over every part and tell you about what each symbol means. Yet, I can't here since there seems to be a lot of conflicting information. What I can say is that the colors are black, red, and gold, not yellow. They are known as the official colors of Germany. Now, it is said that the colors were fashioned after the medieval banner of the Holy Roman Empire. Their symbol was a black eagle with red claws and beak on a gold background. It also symbolizes the Prussian Lutzow Free Corps units' uniforms who fought against Napoleon to gain independence. They had a black coat, red cuffs, and gold buttons. As such, this flag represents freedom and unity. Others do claim that the black stands for determination, the red bravery, strength, and valor, and the gold is for generosity. I will say that I do appreciate this version that you are seeing as well. Let's get to the cryptids. Germany has quite a few cryptids, but actual sightings are a little hard to come by. I'm not sure why this is, especially since it is the first location that I have encountered this. Yet, true to my nature, I was able to uncover a few reports, just not as many as I'd like to have. I think the best place to start would be 2 creatures that are a little bit questionable, but I know they need talked about being we're in Germany. The first of which would be the bizarre being known as the Wolpatinga. Found primarily in Bavaria, this creature looks very similar to the United States version known as the jackalope. The Volpatinga looks like a rabbit with antlers on its head, fangs jutting from its mouth, and wings on its back. In some variations of the story, they can also have pheasant-like back legs, webbed feet, or even a head like a fox. According to lore, they tend to be a very shy being that is very hard to catch and will only appear on a night with a full moon. Although they do seem to be drawn to two things: the smell of beer or the female form. They aren't known to be dangerous, just mischievous, but they are said to be omnivorous in that they eat plants, roots, and other small animals. As you may have assumed, sightings are fairly hard to come by, but the legend has been around for over 100 years, and there are even some wood carvings that appear to depict them. Even though this is probably not a real creature, it is worth noting the curiosity that similar beings are found in the tales from the US with the jackalope, in Sweden known as the skvodar, and even nearby Austria has a version known as the oracle. Maybe there is something to these tales. The next one would be a cryptid that is shared with Switzerland and Italy, and it is called a Tatzelwurm. This creature is said to be 7 feet long, has a feline-like head with many sharp teeth, a snake body, 2 strong front legs with claws attached, are able to produce venom, and live in mountainous areas. The very first sighting was reported in Germany in 1779 by a man named Hans Fuchs. It is said that while walking up a cliffside, 2 such creatures suddenly emerged in front of him from a nearby hole. Terrified by this sight, he ran the whole way back home. Once there, Hans told his family about what he had encountered, and not long after, his heart gave out and he died. In 1836, an image of the creature was found in the Bavarian Hunting Manual, New Pocket Guide of the year 1836 for nature, forest, and hunting enthusiasts. Keeping with sightings in Germany, another report states a man and his son were gathering herbs when suddenly the boy cried out. As the father neared, he saw a serpent-like monster he described as gruesome, with a cat-like head and glowing eyes, was under a rock near his son. The creature hissed loudly, but the man jabbed it with a sharp stick. This caused the creature to spew a green blood, which burned the man's leg, but the 2 managed to escape. In July of 1884, a man named Caspar Arnold was enjoying a meal in a restaurant in Tiel, Austria. During this endeavor, he claimed to have seen a Tatzelwurm for around 20 minutes while looking out the windows. In 1921, a 2 to 3 foot long, gray-colored, 2-legged serpent with a cat-like head jumped out at 2 witnesses in Salzburg, Austria. As a note, before anyone starts to write this in the comments, I know Austria is its own country independent of Germany. However, when these sightings were reported, it still was considered a federal state of Germany. Tying with this is a being known as a Lindwurm, which normally is depicted as a 2-legged dragon, but is very reminiscent to the Tatzelwurm. They are known to eat cattle, human corpses, and make a habit of raiding local graveyards for such flesh. This habit would certainly give the being a toxic bite. So again, there may be something to these stories, especially since there were reports that a few bodies have been donated to the local museums. Moving on, we find 2 cryptids I never would have thought I would be discussing with this country. This would be river monsters. The first isn't that fantastic, but the Schlottensee River in Berlin has many claims of an unknown creature attacking swimmers. In one such 2008 case, a woman was attacked and left with wounds on her leg that required immediate medical attention. This would be followed up with others being bit as well. There wasn't much cause for alarm from officials, but soon the creature started to make a meal out of the swans that were swimming on the water's surface. It is assumed that while not technically a cryptid, the culprit is a whale's catfish. These fish can grow to a massive size, and there have been quite a few documented instances where humans have been found in their stomachs. Now moving to something more within our wheelhouse, is in January of 2018, images emerged of a Nessie-like creature swimming in the Elbe River near Dresden. Nicknamed Elbe for obvious reasons, a man named Torsten Koj captured the images and stated that he watched the creature emerge from the water, swim for a little bit, and then vanish beneath the surface. It was several meters long, had 3 humps, and resembled pictures of Nessie. At the time, the water had risen greatly, and Torsten believes it allowed the massive creature to traverse the water. At the time, many people likened this image to the one seen of the object found in the Thames River a few years back, nicknamed Themsen. Keeping the surprises going, there are claims that Mothman has been spotted in Germany, not once, but twice. Now, the following story has been questioned by some, due to reports being hard to come by, but I wanted to include it for posterity. Also, it feels very familiar to me, but I can't place if I remember it from German tales or if it was location swapped to happening in the US at some point. Allegedly, on September 10, 1978, a group of miners were headed to work near Freiburg when they would encounter something that would forever change their lives. As they neared the tunnel entrance, they saw a giant black mass blocking their way. It appeared to be headless, but there were red eyes on its chest, and it looked like it was wearing a black trench coat. The coat unfurled, revealing it to actually be wings, and this odd creature before them let out an ear-piercing screech. The men ran away in fear. A little less than an hour later, they felt a rumble in the earth, and with it came a massive plume of dust billowing out of the mine entrance. Had the miners not been scared off by the creature, they all would have been trapped when the mine collapsed. The being they saw was nicknamed the Freiburg Shrieker. Keeping with this, a 22-year-old woman named Abby Linfoot and her boyfriend were on vacation in Nuremberg in 2009. While there, she took quite a few pictures of their trip, but it wasn't until she returned home that one of the images appeared to depict more than she expected. It looked like a massive, black-colored flying being with large red eyes. Some assumed she was making up the claim, but her and her family didn't assume it was Mothman or any other type of cryptid. They automatically wondered if it was an image of a cherub, since during that time there was a crash that killed one person and injured 40 others. While the image does look odd, I can't help but be intrigued by this, especially since they weren't trying to claim it was a cryptid. If the image is real and it isn't depicting Ultraman or Mothra, then it certainly looks like my buddy Mothman. Let's end this video on quite an interesting story that is also not free from controversy. This would be the monster of Morbach. The story goes that a group of deserters from Napoleon's army came upon the town of Wittli on their way to Alsace. With this group was a man named Thomas Johann Baptist Schweitzer, who was a terrible person. The group found a farmhouse and proceeded to ransack it. The farmer who owned the house went after the men, but he was promptly killed, as well as his sons. The wife scorned the men for the crimes they had committed, and she cursed Thomas by saying every full moon he would turn into a rabid wolf. At the sound of this, Thomas personally killed the woman as well. As time moved forward, the crew continued to rob other towns, but they couldn't help notice that Thomas had become more and more savage in his deeds and attitude. Soon the group left him, and he proceeded to keep the company of highwaymen and bandits. This didn't last long either, since they couldn't handle how Tom was acting and abandoned him as well for fear of their own lives. Thomas ran into the woods where soon after stories would emerge that a wolf that walked like a man was seen among the trees. During this time, frequently at night, livestock and unwary individuals would be found ravaged when daylight broke. One night, Thomas spied a farmer's daughter named Elizabeth Birrell. He didn't kill her, but he did force himself upon the girl. The town had had enough of this activity and ventured out into the forest to find him. Thomas ran but was eventually caught near the town of Morbach, where he was promptly killed and buried at a crossroads. There, a shrine was built, which contained a single burning candle, with the idea of it being that if the candle stayed lit, the werewolf wouldn't return. All was well until 1988, when a group of Air Force soldiers were passing through the area and noticed that the candle had gone out. They joked amongst themselves about the legend of the werewolf. Later that night, while on base, a perimeter alarm started sounding off. A guard went out to see what was going on, and he claimed to have seen a wolf-like creature standing on two legs, just staring back at him. Suddenly, the beast took off and cleared a 3-meter fence in a single bound. Later, a dog was brought out to search the area, but the moment it came across where the wolf had stood, it cowered down and refused to move farther. To this day, that candle is kept lit. Even if this did turn out to be just a made-up story, I do find it interesting, and I thought you would enjoy it. Much like how I started the cryptid section, I can't really say that I failed to not be able to include all the cryptids found there. Instead, I am utilizing this week's honorable mention sections for cryptid accounts that are possibly more myth or might stand on somewhat shaky ground. For one of the few times, I was unable to find any references to Bigfoot being seen here. The only things I could uncover was that there are old tales of wild men, and the term Skishemensch is used in reference to a Yeti. Also, it is worth noting that apparently Germany added Bigfoot to an endangered species list in 1967. I felt inclined to mention that it was German U-boat operators who claimed that their craft was attacked by an unknown sea creature. This story is simply called the UB-85 atrocity. Technically, it doesn't have anything to do with Germany, but that's why it's here. I'm not sure if this fits here, but this location does have legends about zombies, which are called Wiedergänger, which means one who walks again. Another form in this category would be the Nazi era, which is literally the German version of a vampire. Moving on, we have a being known as Lorelei. The story goes that originally she was a beautiful woman, who due to having her heart broken, threw herself into the Rhine and drowned. For some reason she returned as a siren, who is often seen on the banks brushing her hair and calling male victims to their doom. Interestingly, there actually is a statue devoted to her in St. Gorashausen. Fitting with this is a creature known as a Nixie, which is more seen as a water spirit, but is normally depicted as a form of merperson. The ever-popular cave-dwelling kobolds have a strong presence here as well. So as I end this, I hope you enjoyed it, and that I made Germany proud. Wow, this location really put me through the paces when it came to finding unknown animals. I do feel that I was fairly successful, but I'll let you be the judge of that. If you haven't yet done so, do please consider subscribing to my channel for more content like this. Also, it would be greatly appreciated if you share my videos with someone you know who may enjoy this type of genre. With that, be safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Later!